Today is the third part of the 2 sets of meditations that we've done to date, from one solar eclipse to another, because this weekend is full moon again with another solar eclipse. Am I right?
Solar eclipse part.
Coming up again with the full moon?
Could be.
Okay. Well, in any event, I'm just going with the flow. Strange things are happening everywhere. The first meditation that we did on the Tuesday, and I see how everything's just like fitting together, was about connecting the solar plexus and the throat chakra and cleansing and infusing the authentic power of the upper layers of the chakras into the human system. And then last week on Thursday, we did a different meditation. What did we do there? We pulled the solar plexus chakra up into the throat, and again it was about creating a vibration of authentic power for self, right? Or for interaction with self and from self into today's consciousness, which requires authentic power if you're going to be brave enough to not just survive it, but live it fully. And changing times require flexibility. Changing times require that we be able to feel and know and manage things as they unfold, that we are courageous enough to stand in our truth, knowing that standing in our truth means that the rest will fall into place. But it's very difficult to maintain that kind of faith or knowledge about the universe when you're inundated with what we call life, or the glamours of the earth plane. And yesterday I was sitting quietly, as I usually do in this house, sit quietly, relax, breathe, listen to the trees, and I could hear John Lennon singing Let It Be. Now every time John Lennon specifically sings Let It Be, I'm reminded of when he arrived at the center one day as a spiritual guide in training in a client's reading, and I thought this was hilarious, that John Lennon was going to be a spirit guide. And of course I got set straight very quickly, and it was funny, it was entertaining, it was lovely. And now when I hear him singing Let It Be, it comes as a clear understanding that life is about to change again, that I need to be awake to all of the possibilities and the opportunities, challenges that are coming, and that at the same time I must stand in my truth with the knowing that if I let it be, it's going to unfold for the highest good of all parties concerned. And there's always that feeling inside of me, a restless feeling inside of me that says I want to deal with what's changing, even go implement further change and manage it better. And then there's another part of me that has to learn every time to just rest. And the word is rest in the knowing that it's okay, that it's perfectly fine, that it's exactly what it's supposed to be. It is difficult to come into that space of rest with it, because my reptilian brain goes automatically into agitating around it. Oh dear God, I'm hearing Let It Be. What's going next? What's coming? Should I be worried? Should I be worried? People, what's going on? You know, give me a heads up here. There's always that kind of feeling, like I want to know. And my brain wants to know. It wants a heads up. It wants advance warning. But my stomach doesn't do impending doom. So I finally calm down, a few seconds of agitation. Then I calm down into, oh, let it be. And the trick for me, my technique, is to sit quietly through the agitation, to wait through the agitation, because I know that it's my brain doing this, and it must have its moment in the sun. And then I sit there and I wait. I wait for my brain to stop agitating sufficiently for Mother Mary's voice to come up with, let it be, all is well, I am here. Whatever the message in that moment, and it's always in that sort of refrain, there's this accompanying reassurance. So be aware with the reassurance, and a be aware with the reassurance. And the advice is always to let it be. And there are times where we know that there's nothing else you can do with it other than let it be. But being able to rest in it, I finally realized, after much soul searching, takes a kind of inner strength. That to rest takes strength. To allow something to unfold takes strength. To not dash around the universe trying to sort it out and confronting it and meeting this and shifting that and moving that and manipulating this, that and the other in order to get a specific result takes strength. And it takes different types of strength. It takes a strength of purpose. It takes a strength in terms of self-confidence and assurance, knowing that however it's unfolding, you will be okay. You will manage it. It takes strength of knowledge, a knowledge in one's own strength and the strength of knowing oneself. So self-knowledge becomes the cornerstone of all of these different types of strength that's required to just rest in the knowing that all is well. That I can let it be and all is well. That whatever it is being, it is okay. Whatever it is being, it is good. Whatever it's being, I can't see the whole picture. That will blossom, that will unfold, it will become, and it's going to be fabulous. Because I am letting it be what it is. And so rest in that sense becomes an act of faith. Rest becomes not just a not doing, but also a not agitating in my brain. A not trying to figure it out and preempt it. As if really my little noodle of a human brain could change everything that is already manifesting in the universe for the highest good of all parties concerned. And that's when I use my little noodle of a brain to do things like go and plant something or wash dishes or cook. You know, all of those transient, temporary, practical doing things that allows me to invest any excess energy that my mind and my body have produced into something creative, and then it is easier to rest. Now we've done a resting meditation in the center, and everybody had great difficulty resting. Everybody had great difficulty just coming to a full stop and being. And now I am talking about a different kind of resting. It isn't just resting because you're tired. It isn't resting and just getting quiet. It's resting as in consciously practicing letting it be. Resting as in resting on your laurels and doing nothing. And that's hard for those of us who are trained, who are in our very conditioned selves, told that we must do something about everything. That if we don't do something about it, all hell is going to break loose. And now I'm sitting here saying, if you don't do something about it, open yourself up to the possibility that all heaven will break loose. Or that just very by the way, this chaos that you're experiencing is all heaven has already broken loose. And you just have to get with the program by resting, by letting it come to you. And if we look at nature, which is always the best example of how the universe works. I mean, if you look at things, everything is going at its own pace, slowly, turtle pace. There isn't a rush. When a plant is growing, it doesn't suddenly, other than Jack and the Beanstalk, which was magic beans anyway, there's no plant that's rushing to reach a particular height. You know, pushing itself through the ground takes time, and it does that. And it keeps pushing its way through the ground without even knowing that there's going to be light on the other side of that. All it's responding to is that feeling of warmth, the intimation of light. the natural instinctive surge or urge to find light in order to use that light to create its nourishment. And the soul has a very similar restlessness and yearning and urging and surging to find light. When I have this vision, I'm sitting there and I'm working and I have this vision of standing in this cathedral where all different colors of light are playing on the floor because of the stained glass windows. And there is one spot of yellowy white light that is clear with no color in it. And I know I have to go and stand in the light. So now I'm busy trying to figure out where this cathedral is. I'm quite certain it's in Paris somewhere. So I have to find it so I can go and stand in the light. And that's the kind of yearning inside to be in that light, to be in peace, to be okay. But to be that, we have to let some things be what they are. Just the notion that we must keep leaving ourselves to poke our noses and our hands and our feet and our agitation into something else in order to manage it is enough to take you out of peace of mind, out of your own quiet space, and put you into toxicity. The notion that you have to do that is again conditioned, because everybody has a choice about whether or not to get involved and how to get involved. Sometimes the best way to get involved is to step back, bear witness, become objective, and be supportive without interfering. But all of that, the ability to do that, requires the ability to rest. To not become Chicken Little, running around petrified that the sky is going to fall down. And the cornerstone of that kind of rest is self-knowledge, which goes hand in hand with authentic power. Now, I love the way the universe works. I just love the way the universe works. Because these meditations have been so beautifully validated by Shirdi Baba immediately after. It's like all over Facebook. I just love it. It's the music that he's brought and that he's singing in my head and that is playing in the center is making my cells dance. You know, that kind of feeling. Look happy about this, Lou. Yes. Here you go. Now imagine inside there's this intrinsic knowing that not only am I channeling these meditations and channeling the healing transmissions, but that the work is done. And it's so wonderful to have the kind of faith that is open and allows that kind of validation. And that kind of validation comes only when I am in a space of quiet rest. I say to Charmaine today, I have to get out and about a little more, you know. I'm getting to be very reclusive. I don't like leaving home. It's becoming very traumatic for me to leave home. Because here in the sanctuary, I am almost perpetually in a state of rest. I've become more protective of the space, more protective of my peace of mind. I am nourishing it and nurturing it and protecting it. Exactly the way I used to protect Paddy. Mess with my peace of mind and I kill first. I don't bother with questions later. It's become such a precious commodity. And when I step outside, simple things, little things become a shock to my system. I think, oh my God, people still behave this way in the world. And every day I go onto Facebook just to remind myself that there is a whole world outside there that is completely different from this space of peace, of rest, of quiet, innate knowing, of concretized, integrated faith that keeps me strong and crazy and loving and funny and happy and all sorts of other things, but also keeps me me. That what I think of as being my true life, or a life based in truth, is so totally different from the purported glamours and illusions and masks and facades of what lives outside. And the biggest difference I can see between the life inside the walls and the life outside the walls is, again, this thing called self-knowledge. Because it is not perfection inside. It is just awareness inside. And self-knowledge gives us that. It gives us an awareness of why we do what we do, how we're doing what we're doing. And when it forces us to backtrack into ourselves, it gives us a space of taking back our power from those things outside of ourselves that give us conditioned obligation and duty. It opens up the pathway that we may come from love instead. And if there is nothing else that we are learning in these meditations, it is the value of love in everything. Because in the end, only love is real, right? Right? Yeah? So today's meditation is to continue the previous two meditations. And in fact, there was a brief discussion about this last week, Thursday, after that meditation. Because my guides have said, to follow up, what we're going to do next week is we're going to look at you as a multidimensional being. Last week, somebody asked about the monadic body, and I gave you an explanation of how I, the soul, is actually 12 aspects of the higher self connected to this self. So I can actually be incarnated as 12 different beings or souls connected to a physical body, all of which connects to my higher self. Remember this explanation? Okay. So today's meditation is going to take us a step further from that. The understanding. Now this is identity, which is solar plexus. The understanding that first and foremost, I am soul. Let's not nod like at that one as if we all know that and that we are all living that, because we're not. When I step into the world, I am faced with people who come from a range of I am statements as their identity. Yesterday, for example, when we were doing International Day of the Woman, everybody was being a woman first and foremost. They weren't being soul first and foremost. So a lot of people come from their jobs. You say, so what is your first point of identification? And they tell you what their job is. Some people tell you which country they belong to, what their nationality is. Some people tell you what race they belong to. That's their primary source of identification. Some people give you their religion as their identification. Some people will give you their marital status as their identification. So for everybody, the priority of identity is different. And yet the one common thing, except maybe for Mugabe and George Bush, is that we are all soul. Okay, we can add a few other people to that list for you, but we won't. So let's just stick with the topic. For everybody, with a few exceptions, the one common identity is that I am soul. The second common identity is that I am human. And as human, I am subject to a variety of identities, and Carl Jung identified them as possibly 84 different archetypes. And of those 84 different archetypes, there are 4 primary archetypes that speak to the identity of every human being. And we've talked about those here, right? The inner child, the prostitute, the victim, and the saboteur. So here we have a clear structural understanding of the identity of the human being. And then together with that, we have a clear understanding of the consciousness of being human. Because the consciousness of being human has the unconscious mind, the subconscious mind, conscious mind, and what we call the spiritually guided or intuitive superconscious mind. When I put those 4 together into the identity of being human, it gives me a complete picture of the human self. It also falls very neatly into a set of 8, because you know how I like my 4x4s, 8, which aligns beautifully with the 8 primary chakras that we work with in every meditation. More importantly, it falls into exactly half the number of petals that we are working with in the throat chakra. I love it. It fell so beautifully into my head. So when I look at the being human identity, and I put it there in the whole of the throat chakra, it becomes a smaller flower, a smaller circle of 8 different points, which is the exact number of the compass on the earth plane. 8 different points that sits at the center of my throat chakra, bringing a space or creating a space of interaction with the authentic power or truth of soul. Now, we might not actually know, and I for certain don't know, what the 16 petals of my throat chakra holds. Excuse me while I just undress. But I do know, sorry, I'm not going any further than that, but I do know that one of those petals is in fact a wacky sense of humor and an irreverence for anything that I do not feel to be truth. So this is a quality of my throat chakra, the ability to speak so glibly, easily, eloquently, articulately. I've been able to do that my whole life. That's just another aspect or attribute of the 16 petals of the throat chakra that speaks to the truth of who I am. The ability to channel information so easily that it looks like it's scripted in front of me, as if I'm reading off something somewhere, right? I make it look easy. Yeah. That's another quality of the throat chakra. The ability to just be completely unflammoxed in speaking my truth, and if you don't like it, I'm good with that. That's fine. This detachment or objectivity or whatever you call it, maybe it's just I don't give a shit. That works for me. Another attribute of my throat chakra. But I only know all of those things because I've spent all of these years practicing, finding out, learning who I am, looking at all of the systems of the universe that speak to me and speak about me and show me who I am. I have been a very fascinating subject of study. And in the midst of all of that, I have had to listen to my guides, give me truths about myself that have made me look pretty darn awful from time to time, and occasionally made me look better than I am, but have worked in terms of giving me a perspective or a view of myself that I didn't already have, something to aspire to, and even, mostly, things to outgrow. But this journey of self-knowledge that has allowed me to take my understanding of doing human and my presence on the earth plane as a system of consciousness and place it bang smack as a smaller blossoming flower in the middle of my throat chakra is that feeling or sense of creating my own power within myself, of utilizing the truth of me in human interaction. Now, we've had a lot of people tell us that we are afraid of our own power, right? Marianne Williamson, I think, was the one who said it best, and then Nelson Mandela made her ultra famous by quoting it at the inauguration speech. That we hide our lights under a bushel because we are afraid of our own power. We are afraid of what will change. We are afraid of who we will become. We are afraid of how the world will receive it or not receive it. And just that inkling of fear or doubt is enough to put us back in a box. Now that fear sits in all of the human chakras. And the fact is that it never goes away. It sits there as part of our human chakras. It never goes away. It comes up with everything. And from self-knowledge, from the sense of oneself and the knowing of oneself, and even the willingness to let things rest, to let things be, until the time for a decision and the time for action has come, comes that power to overcome the fear.